This is it. This car is getting a hybrid Renesis. I made a mistake. Ooh, we do have some scoring over here. You're gonna build the hybrid Renesis engine.
Forever in my mind, only you. The pieces in my life go away.
Full back face. Either you just saw the RX8 run for the very first time, or you watched it fire up for the first time and destroy itself. I don't know, because the engine doesn't run yet. We've just rewinded back in time. There's still a lot to do. Oil injectors, intake, wiring harness, coolant. It all needs to be done, and we're doing it in this video, and you guys will see it run. First things first, oil injectors, let's go. All right, so if you're new to the rotary world, you may not know this, but these engines will actually burn oil by design. They have oil injectors in the rotor housings, which is the part that we've swapped out previously. Those oil injectors help keep the seals lubricated, and it should extend our seal life. This is fed by the OMP, the oil metering pump, which we have kept the same as the RX8. All right, on this table, we have 3 different types of rotary engine oil injectors. If you've got a Renesis engine, this is what you're familiar with. These are Renesis oil injectors, and you'll notice there are 4 of them. Where's my rotor housing? Now, if you're rotary engine illiterate, this is the rotor housing, and at the top, this being an S1, we have 2 ports for oil injectors that are gonna go in at a staggered angle. Instead, I have GSLSE rotor housings. So that makes me think, well, I should probably run GSLSE oil injectors. And the problem is these will not work, at least not with a manual transmission Renesis engine. My theory is that the extra material on the intake manifold for the 6-port Renesis engines, these will not fit. I know they won't fit on my engine. I don't know if they'll fit on a 4-port if you care. And you may be thinking, well, why not just install the RX8 oil injectors or the Renesis oil injectors? Well, these are too long. These will not actually bottom out. You won't get a seal. So these simply will not work. Instead, shout out to my boy Alex FD3S over on Instagram. You guys should definitely go like him. He's got a really beautiful yellow FD3S. And he said, hey, you should run RX7 FD oil injectors, which are slightly newer. And that's what these are here. These are much shorter than both the RX8 and GSLSE oil injectors. Now, when you put the GSLSE and the RX7 FD oil injector side by side, it looks like the RX7 FD is going to be much taller than the GSLSE oil injectors, but that's actually not true, and that's because this is only half of the GSLSE oil injector. Now, I found out that while the FD RX7 oil injectors are better than the GSLSEs, there is still a clear collision with the intake manifold bolt. All right, so after talking to a couple people who have actually done a hybrid Renesis and ran the OMP, it sounds like the best option is just to remove those bolts, which is what I'm gonna do. So I moved on to planning out my vacuum lines. Bought a bunch of different size hose and I ended up making my own custom lines. I don't remember what size they are, and at the end of the day, they're still not right. I would recommend you guys just get these lines online. They're expensive, but they save you a lot of heartache. This is the abomination that some kid had on this car. This is a straight pipe, and I've never heard it, but I can already tell you it probably sounds like shit. Now, I need an exhaust, so I've got this DNA motoring exhaust. It's not fancy, but it's got mufflers, unlike the other one, so it's going to go on the car. Can you believe I had an RE Amamea ordered and then canceled it? Not joking. I'm going to regret that. Now, when you're talking about a hybrid, this comes into the mix. This is the hybrid Renesis exhaust header, and a couple things may be catching your eye. Let's go ahead and talk about it. This header actually comes directly from Eric over at Rad Potential. He got his car running. If you guys don't know, this header made 100 wheel horsepower before it was modified. Eric, like many others, would not be happy about that number, so he immediately started making quick modifications to see what would change. The first thing that he thought to change was the center port, and that's because if you go to the Facebook forums, every single one of those dudes that has never built a hybrid is gonna say to block the center port, and nobody tells you why, because they don't know why. So Eric went ahead and plugged it. We'll talk about this in a second. And he said that he got almost no change. So if you've talked to hybrid Renesis builders, many of them state you gotta block the side ports. So he blocked the side ports. I think this is how we're gonna close things up. We've got our new vacuum connections on the 2. These are RX7 FD oil injectors. So we've got my, I think, primary fuel injectors right here. We're using the old vacuum block as a standoff just because it was here before. Now we just got to put on the 2nd and 3rd stage fuel injectors. All right, so we just got the 2nd and 3rd fuel injectors. And as you can see, the vacuum went right back here. I'll put a little thing up on the screen. It is just about pinched between the first fuel rail and the intake manifold. That's just gonna have to ride. There's no other oil injectors that I know of to try. That's just what it's gonna be. All right, well, I just spent the last hour and a half extending the O2 sensor. Man, if this motor doesn't build oil pressure, or if it destroys itself or does something stupid, I don't know what to do. But that's what we're doing right now. We're gonna try to build oil pressure cranking. I just wanna see oil do something. That's actually the oil light right there flashing, telling me I've got 0 oil pressure. All right. It's not gonna start for multiple reasons, but yeah. It's got compression. I'm gonna go check how much oil it's got. We're good on oil. I'm gonna crank it a little bit more and see if the gauge does anything. The time's come. We're about to try to fire up the RX8 for the first time. I'm not even gonna talk to it, just current talking to me. What do you think, Brandon?
Let's get it.
What are the odds this thing fire up first try?
Hopes are high.
Run neutral, clutch down. Oh my gosh, I'm so fucking nervous. I'm gonna make sure the gauge is turned on real quick. Here we go. I shut her down because she started to take off, and she started building oil pressure. She took off to 70 psi. She started! Oh, yeah, I was told this would happen. Oh, that assembly loop doing its thing. Hello, assembly lube. Yeah, I was told this is gonna happen. I should have warned you. It started taking off towards the moon, though. I don't know if this is just gonna be a side effect of it trying to idle. What do you think? Give it another start? It's so loud. There's literally an HOA meeting going on right next to my house, at my neighbor's house. I'm gonna see if it'll hold idle. Fuck yeah! Alright. No. Yeah.
Not trying to stop work, but we're still having a meeting.
I kind of saw that coming. We are in the hybrid Renesis. We're about to go for hopefully the first drive around my neighborhood. Are you ready? Yes! Fuck yes! Okay, I have now owned a fucking RX8 for 1 year. And this is my first time ever driving one. I've never even gotten to ride in an RX8, by the way. Never ridden in one, never driven one. I've owned this thing for a year. I'm not a big fan of the exhaust note at all. It sounds horrible. Come on. Brakes are soft. Oh, she died. I'm thinking I might be flooding it, but I really don't want to push it all the way back to the house. We're gonna try this one more time. We did add 2 gigantic holes to the side of the engine, and then we told the engine, like, good luck. So I kind of expected something like this was going to happen eventually. Not really the end of the world. We're just going to get it inside and try to figure it out. The hybrid Renesis is now at 1,000 miles. It is torn apart right now due to a fuel and coolant leak. Now, you guys have had a bunch of questions for me over on Instagram. Check me out there, racing_with_Mitchell. I answer most, if not all, of the messages that I get. I'm happy to talk to you guys. First questions, if I don't have dyno results, how does the car feel? That's gonna be the #1 question. We don't know what kind of power it makes. I've been babying the car under 4,500 RPMs while I break it in. I finally tried to get it up to around 7,000 RPMs the other day, and it was just falling on its face at 4,500. Now, it looks like that's related to a lean and misfire code, so that's part of the reason why the car's torn down right now. Theo asked me a bunch of really good questions. First of all, which ports are we using? If you guys don't know, since we've added the GS LSE housings, we now have 6 exhaust ports if you count the 1 Siamese port. I got a header from Rad Potential over on YouTube. You guys should definitely go check him out. He blocked all of the side ports, so right now we're only using the peripheral ports. I would like to try to utilize all the ports, and based on my conversation with Kyle Mohan and Eric, if you guys haven't seen that video, you should go check it out. It sounds like there could be some benefits if we modify the intake and maybe the ECU. The problem is, if I'm gonna be spending that kind of money, I'm just gonna go boost it. And if I go boosted, we will be using all 6 ports. Your boy's doing the adult thing and paying off my student loan debts and that kind of stuff. Any spare money I have is going towards debts. I don't have the money to boost the RX8 right now. Theo also asked, what was the process like of getting the exhaust header? And this is a very touchy subject. So this car went to a fab shop back in February, and it sat for about 6 months with no progress. I'm not gonna name the shop because it wasn't a malicious or laziness thing. They had a bunch of life events pop up. Obviously, it's still a bit of a bummer when your car sits for 6 months. When I saw Rad Potential was getting rid of the header on his hybrid Renesis, I reached out to him and I wanted to put it on here since I have different seals and different porting. He has RX8 seals, I have RX7 seals. He had a bridge port, I have no aftermarket intake porting. What this means is we get to dyno tune this car and compare these numbers to his numbers and eliminate one variable being the exhaust header. John was asking for some general details on my setup. This is a 6-port Renesis that I have utilized all stock Renesis parts except for the rotors have been modified for RX7 apex and corner seals. I also have RX7 OEM apex seals and OEM corner seals. I am using RX8 side seals gapped to the factory spec per the manual. That means I do not have a street port, I don't have a bridge port, this is the factory intake porting. We have a 5 or 6 into 2 into 1 header from Rad Potential. However, we're really only utilizing the peripheral ports, which means it's essentially a 2 into 1 header. All of the original side exhaust ports are blocked. I've gone the last 1,000 miles on the stock tune. It takes a little bit to figure out how to idle, but it will run. That being said, mine is breaking up at around 4,500 RPM. I don't know if it's related to an APV code that I had or a small fuel leak that I found on disassembly. Dan Cressa asked, future plans, boost. This thing's just gonna get boosted. I really wanted to see what this thing could do in A, but it seems like the juice is not worth the squeeze, which is what a lot of people were saying, but you know, I was curious. When will it be boosted? I don't know, probably when I'm done paying off my student loans, hopefully in the next year. Speaking of which, if you got a shop and you want to develop a turbo header, let me know. Subscribe for the next video because this thing is getting tuned and going to the dyno basically once I get it all put back together.